Hey everyone, welcome to the Tuesday night rapid fire video. This week we're joined by legendary director Brian Trenchard-Smith, who joined us on the podcast on Monday night, so make sure you go back and listen to that. He has a new book out called The Adventures in the B-Movie Trade, which you can see right now. Have a look at that. Hey Brian, how are you?
I am just fine, and I trust you are the same at, Sparrow Fart in Melbourne, I believe. Nice of you to get up this early. I am in, it's, past noon in Oregon. Anyway, the obligatory thrust the book in the face of the viewer. Okay, plug over.
Have a look at that.
Visual plug over. Anyway, thanks for having me, and hello, everybody.
Absolutely. Well, are you ready for some random rapid fire questions? I'm just going to throw them at you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have my my career advisor here, grooming herself as career advisors should. Yes, fire away.
Okay. Well, you've been living in Oregon for several years now. Do you have any Aussie keepsakes that remind you of home?
Yes, what I'm wearing at the moment. Okay, I shall have to do the full. Yeah, this is a Mambo shirt that I really should have ironed before this interview, but it represents Australian values, and I have 9 Mambo shirts, and they regularly, remind me of, my Australianness. I'm half British, half Irish, half Australian, and I miss Australia, but it was clear that my career was not going to go anywhere in particular in Australia, and I was not going to be able to make a film a year. Now, I mean, that's probably a selfish desire to make a film a year, and any filmmaker listening to this and say, hey, you should be so lucky. Well, indeed, I wanted to be that lucky because film is an international medium, and I wanted to make international films in Australia, but it became harder. So I went to Hollywood to find my level, and I left Australia as a medium-sized fish in a small pond and landed at LAX and immediately became plankton. With hard work, I soon became a sardine, and it was my ambition to become a happy clownfish, playing in a variety of the tropical waters of multiple genres. So that's sort of metaphor soup for you today.
A gumbo.
But gumbo, yes, and I like gumbo too. I like a great deal of about my life in America, particularly in Oregon. Yeah. I mean, Los Angeles is kind of a separate country and mindset of its own. Oregon is closer to the kind of traditional American values, and it's not all conservatism up here. Portland is a very progressive city, and I am a progressive, and I like to think of myself now as a rural progressive because I understand what the values of rural life and the strengths of rural people, and that applies across the world. It applies to to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, England, well, every country. But there's a special joy in rural life that I have discovered and embrace. And would like to embrace some Australian rural life sometime when I next visit.
Well, speaking of Australia, to sort of fend off the homesick blues, do you keep any Vegemite or Tim Tams in your pantry?
Cholesterol. I have to watch that, and because I'm a bit of a fang man, I like to eat, and accompany it with a good red wine, and occasionally, the appropriate beer, as on the front of this shirt, so Vegemite. is okay. I mean, I've bought it in Los Angeles, tried to give it to American friends who keeled over with salt attack. But I like it in small doses.
Yes.
But there are other many Australian delicacies that it can be had all over the world too, and Australian wines particularly.
Absolutely. Well, here at fakeshemp.net, next question, by the way, we are huge fans of Joe Dante, and you're a regular guest on his Trailers from Hell website. What's it like inside Joe Dante's house?
Well, it's a wonderfully appointed house, and his partner Elizabeth Stanley is just a delightful woman, very erudite, and really smart. And it's always a pleasure to visit them and to be recorded in their living room. In a section, in the rear section of their living room, against a green screen. It used to be in his cabana out the back, but I think now mainly there. And we always have, really interesting conversations, which, could go on for hours, but there are generally other Trailers from Hell gurus waiting to do their turn, and similarly have conversations. But now I self-record, with my iPhone up here in Oregon and send it down to them, and that seemed to work reasonably well. And occasionally, I get a really happy accident. As yet, my piece on Walt Disney's Bambi has not come out, but I just was sitting outside when one of my deer came up and wanted some apples, so I started to feed her, and she just had twins, and the twins came along to eat at the deer block, and so I immediately quickly whipped out my phone and did an intro to the Bambi piece, and then I set about writing it for the voiceover.
Well, you've practically answered my next question, because I was going to ask you, do you get to choose what films you cover on Trailers from Hell, or do you pitch them?
Oh, yes. I mean, all the gurus have their choice, whatever you like. You can even do ones that have been done by other people, if you like. I think there are a couple of Mutiny on the Bounties that are, anyway, I did one. No, it's our choice. It's a very, freewheeling, website. And I think there's, upward of 30,000 subscribers. I may be shortchanging them. That's nice. If there are, that many people who are movie geeks who really want some sort of little inside information about the movies they loved in the past, or ones they've never heard of that they might want to discover, I think that would be, it's a great site. It's a great cinema history resource. And I got the National Film and Sound Archive of Australia to be aware of it. I've done over 90 of these cinema lectures in a library of 2,000. And there are many more eminent directors than me that have made contributions. Anyway, the NFSA has now got a hard drive of all my Trailers from Hell permanently for Australia's record. And there are quite a few Australian films that I have curated, on Trailers from Hell. And anyway, thank you, NFSA, for thinking that they're valuable. And now that hard drive is a permanent part of the NFSA library. It's a very valuable resource, not just for Australia but for the world. It's one of the best film and media libraries in the world, and deserves, frankly, a much greater level of governmental support than it's currently given.
Absolutely.
It does an amazing restoration technique. The restorations they've done on Australian films and on French films, and anyone who wants a really good restoration, take your stuff to the NFSA, and they will restore that negative in a way that you will be very pleased by.
Yep, couldn't agree more. And talk about jumping from one subject to another. What's your favourite dessert?
My favorite dessert. Oh, sweet tooth! I'm beginning to salivate now. Even. Um, well, of course, I'm a bit of a chocoholic,
Yeah.
but my wife makes absolutely delightful fruit crumbles. She's a great baker, so that would be a. But I mean, pavlova. She makes pavlova very nicely, and acquired that skill in Australia and practices it still. So. But yeah, that is that's certainly, I would say, I could have a pavlova every week, very very happy. Just as well that I don't.
And you mentioned a few minutes ago that your house is visited by local deer. Do they have names?
Well, yes. I mean, I try not to anthropomorphize them too much. I there is one. I give them names so that I can recognize them when I see them, because
Mm.
deer have a tendency to look alike, and so the deer with the twins is Grey Nose, because she seems to have a bit of a darker grey strip, down her nose than some of the others. And there's another called Ragged Ear, and that's because she's had a little disagreement with a barbed wire entanglement on her ear. And so that's the way I can tell those two does apart. And I did have, my first dear friend was Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim came to us lame at Christmas, so we called him Tiny Tim. So I noticed him limping, and I could see a little bit of bone sticking out of his rear left leg. So anyway, I tossed him a little bit of apple. He was actually across in the neighboring property, and he was limping. And so he kind of followed me home, and then I started feeding him. And because it was the beginning of winter, and I could tell he had an infection. He wasn't doing well, so I just kept feeding him. He would come and eat and then disappear back into the bush, as they do. But he would come every day, and gradually that bone started to go back into the leg, and they have tremendous recuperative powers, the deer. So he did, grow his horns, but they migrate a lot. I saw him around for 2 years. I haven't seen him since. He was certainly a two-pointer the last time I saw him. And of course, the fact of the matter is he might have been shot and eaten, because it's hunting season at certain times of the year. On the bucks, and people hunt the horn, so forth. That's not my thing, but hunters. Hunters have the right to hunt for food, and they do hunt for food up here. I'm less impressed by trophy hunting. Certainly, I'm appalled by trophy hunting in Africa by Trump's sons.
Yes, for sure. Is there? Well, then we'll move along. Is there a reason that you chose to settle down in Oregon?
Yes, my son moved to Oregon several years, around nearly 10 years ago, and he said, "Dad, you're going to love it up here. You should one day think about not living in LA anymore. Maybe and perhaps you can still do what you want to do from another state of America." And there's the air is clean, the water is clean, the people are friendly and progressive in their political outlook. Certainly in the city of Portland, I live sort of on the border with a more conservative part of Oregon, but I get along with everybody, and it's anyway. My son said, give it a shot sometime. So back in 2015, I could see, the movie offers were not coming in as fast as or let's say the offers were coming in, but the financing it was not arriving, as I had hoped. So I thought, well, what the hell? I can do what I do, write, and do a certain amount of promotional consulting for people and script consulting. I can do that anywhere. So we went up here, and I'd been invited up to host a screening of The Man from Hong Kong at Portland's historic Hollywood Theatre. It's a wonderful old 1920s theatre, beautifully restored, really great, and brilliantly managed by Dan Halstead, who has a very interesting programming slate. This is pre-COVID, of course. So at the screening, the Q&A, they said, are you going to move to Oregon? And so I paused for a moment and I said, yes. And of course, we had an appointment to view a house the next day. And of course, you don't buy the first house you see. I mean, that's crazy. But as I drove up the rutted road, a mile from the 2-lane highway, 8 miles from the 6-lane highway, but 20 minutes drive from a supermarket and a 5-screen movie house, and a indoor heated swimming pool, then I just fell in love with the look of the house and the garden as we drove in, and I just had to have it, and made an offer on the spot.
Wow. Well, I used to. Sorry, I used to live in.
Excuse me. Sorry, little bit of allergy.
No, that's
not COVID.
Change of seasons. I used to live in Vancouver for several years, and I really missed that sort of sea meets mountain meets wilderness atmosphere.
Yes, I mean Vancouver, Washington, or Vancouver, Canada.
Canada.
Canada. Yes, I've made 4 films in Vancouver. No, I've made 9 in Canada as a whole, and it's Canada, America's more moral northern neighbor, is a fine place, and I enjoy it. I think there's something about the whole Pacific Northwest spreading into Canada, the trees, the air, the critters.
Yes.
There's joy in the air, and maybe it sort of helps human friendliness. I don't know. It's I'm becoming sentimental.
It's a beautiful part of the world. But finally, before we wrap up, here's an opportunity. Would you like to pitch your book to anybody listening or watching that probably doesn't know anything about it?
Well, I've tried to make this book accessible to non-film people as well as film people. It's obviously intended to intrigue such people as to what goes on in that crazy business called film, and to books also should be a story, should be about a journey, a journey in which there is character growth, and I think my journey has had some character growth, and there are I've come from an Ozploitation mentality, which I still am proud to espouse, to a more sort of humanistic and I suppose a bit of kind of mystical view of nature now. I see God in the life force. I see God in the power of nature, the eternal, enduring, and capacity of nature. So it's not as if I'm turning into some sort of a great philosopher. But so it is a story of a personal journey, and as well as I said about it's a portrait of an era, and it is my second book. And if you want to read some of my fiction, this was once a screenplay, which got optioned for good money. We could never get Keira Knightley or Scarlett Johansson or any of the rising femmes du jour 10 years ago who could at least get the movie greenlit. We could never really get their agents to put it to them seriously for an independently financed European co-production. And too hard, come back to us with a studio offer. But studios weren't interested. So I decided, what the hell, I'll rewrite it as a novel, a time-twisting paranormal thriller, Alice Through the Multiverse. So if you like that sort of thing, and if you have maybe $15 million, we could actually make it as a movie. Although I have drafted an outline for 3 seasons as a mini series or as a limited series. But anyway, that's
brilliant.
I think those 2 books represent 2 sides of my writing capacity, shall we say?
Excellent. And well, I've got the website on the bottom of the screen. You can find the book on Amazon, available on paperback or Kindle. Brian, it's been thank you for indulging me with this rapid fire. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, as you know, I hate a chat. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your interest over the years. I really appreciate it. I look forward to actually meeting you in person and shaking your hand in the COVID-free era that will one day come about.
Oh, let's lock it in.